Boy, those mosaics are so awesome. I'm so glad Dimitry is here to help us make one of these. Well, students, there's so many pieces in a mosaic. How do they do that? Well, today, Dimitri's going to show us how. This video is a little longer than the other one, so watch carefully as Dimitry shows us exactly how he makes a mosaic.
Some tiles are bigger, just like this. This tile is. Some are smaller tiles and different colors, of course. Some tiles are thin, like this tile over here. It's very thin. And some tiles are much thicker. And of course, I brought a sample of glass mosaics, which we might use, but again, I don't know. And this is, of course, this is all glass, and it's much thinner as well. So it's again, it depends on what kind of design we're gonna do, then we'll decide. Maybe in some elements we will use glass mosaics. And I did bring just a sample of maybe rocks. I don't know, we'll see, maybe we'll use that as well. I've done this before, where we used rocks within the mosaic. And the next step, once I have the proper all the tiles, of course, if we need to make them smaller, something like this. How do we do that? There's some artists, mosaic artists, would simply take a hammer and start smashing tiles. This is something that I avoid. I don't like doing that. I prefer to cut tiles. And once we start our project, you will be able to cut it as well. In order to cut the tiles, I use a tool which called simple a tile cutter. And tile cutter is, of course, it has a handle so we can move it back and forth. The very middle part of tile cutter is slightly elevated. There is a blade here, and there is a bar over here. So, for example, we'll start with this tile. What I usually do, and that's a nice color. We have a nice yellow color. I would put it right on the surface of the tile cutter. The next step, we need to put the blade on the surface of the tile. And if I go like this, nothing really happens. So what we need to do, we need to put a little more pressure, just enough so we can score or just simply scratch the tile. And look what happens. Look what happens. And I like to hold my tile gently, and I'll put extra pressure. And you can't hear it, or maybe you can. It makes a certain sound. And now we have a scratch. And please do not ever attempt to break your tile with your bare hands, because again, the edges are very sharp, so we don't want any injuries. All we need to do, we need to put tile on the surface of the tile cutter, and then we'll take the bar right to the top of the tile. At this point, we'll make sure that the blade will not touch the tile. And all we need to do is just to put some pressure. Just a bit of pressure, and you will do it sometime later. And there we go. We have two pieces of tiles. So we need to make it smaller. So I'll put it back on the surface of the tile cutter. Scratch. Break. And I always try to go middle. It's easier to break it. I'll put it back on the surface of the tile cutter. Scratch. Break. We have more pieces, but still too big. At this point, I would cut tiles in narrow pieces. Scratch. Break. Scratch. Break. And usually we can do as many as we want, and scratch and break. So we have 3 pieces of tiles now, but still too big for a mosaic installation. So then we can combine all 3 pieces together, put it right on the edge of the tape, and do the same thing. We can just scratch, break, and we have more pieces of tiles that we can use. And I'll do one more cut And we have enough tiles here to, depending on what kind of mosaic, of course, we're gonna do. We have our pieces that are ready to cut.
Cool. But there's even smaller pieces there. How do they do that?
So at this point, there is another tool that I do spend a lot of time with, and it looks like a pair of pliers. Actually, we need to nip our tile. So these are tile nippers. And when we use tile nippers, there's two edges, one flat, curved. So we need to use the curved edge of tile nippers. And just hold it. The handles curve a little bit. And then I use the right hand. In my left hand, I usually like to hold the tile with my fingertips. If it's too difficult, of course, I can go like this, just without holding it. But I do prefer to hold it. And then we place the very edge of tile nippers. We put it right where the line is. And we just put some pressure. And we have two pieces of tiles. If you need to make it smaller, you can just keep going. Make it smaller. We can even make it smaller if we have to. And we can make it even smaller. Do you think we can do a smaller piece? I think we can give it a try. Let's see if it'll work. And there we go. That is as small as I would go. I just brought the smaller pieces of plywood. It's going to be approximately the same thickness. And I just want to show you how we're going to put it together. What you guys will have to do, you'll place your pieces of tiles on brown paper, one by one, working as a team. This is going to be very important to work as a team. At this point, it will be very important to make sure there are spaces between tiles. Tiles will keep their social distance here. So what we'll do, we'll put them here and we'll keep spaces between tiles, of course. And why do we need spaces between tiles? Because we need to, once the mosaic is done, we'll put grout or cement between the tiles. It'll be important. It'll make your mosaic look much better, and it will make it much stronger because your mosaic will stay in your school forever and ever. So I'll just quickly show you how it's done. Let us pretend that this mosaic is done.
Whew. Well, that was pretty cool, but it would be even more cool to stick these tiles to the wall. How do they do that?
So let's pretend that this mosaic is done. And you guys call me, Dimitry, we're done. So I'll come into your group, I'll check, yes, everything is good, nothing is sticking out, we have nice spaces between the tiles. So now it will be very important to break the masking tape into smaller pieces, which doesn't take long. And in the past, I've done lots of large installations gluing it piece by piece or other methods, but this method I find very effective. So we break the pieces in tape into smaller pieces, and then we gently lay it on the surface of our mosaic, one at a time. So we still have to be careful, of course, so we don't break the design. Just gently, we don't need to put any pressure at the moment. And just one more piece. And this is all covered with tape. So at this point, once we cover it, you guys can start putting pressure, 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 pressure. Even pretend that you're playing a piano to catch all the pieces, bigger, smaller pieces. Done. And then let's see what happens if we lift this up. Will it stay together? And this is fairly small. Our sections are going to be much bigger. And look what happens. It all stays together. And you can sort of see a design right at the back. So it's it. Then we take our mosaic and we start with number one. We'll do it one by one. We take it onto the plywood, place it on the surface of the glue. Pressure, pressure, pressure. We can use just our fingertips. I do have another tool that I use to. This is actually for grouting, but I use it just to put pressure. And we just put pressure because it's nice and flat, just to make sure that the glue catches all the pieces of tile. And that's why I find that fingertips are more effective. And you guys will be doing it, of course. So, once it's done, what do we do next? Do we peel the tape off right away? And of course, no, because we need to wait for the glue to dry. And I usually wait 24 hours. Let's say if we glue your mosaic on Thursday, we can come back on Friday and gently peel the tape off. And if it's hard to peel it off, we can even spray it with water and it comes off really easy.
Well, there you have it. Now we understand how to make a tile mosaic. Stay tuned for part 3, where you're going to learn how you can get your ideas into the mosaic. It'll be awesome.